Hello and welcome to Cruising and Musing. I am your host Rob, and we are kind of slow rolling through Fort Myers, and we're going to talk about not making yourself car poor today. I've learned a few lessons the hard way, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk, and I'm going to hope that you learn from my mistakes. This way you don't have to make them. And I want to give a shout out to an old friend, Q. If you ever hear this, you know who you are. I'm giving the same advice you gave me. I'm going into more detail, but I'm giving you the same advice you gave me that I was not smart enough to take as a young man. So, again, how to not make yourself car poor. If you can, hit that subscribe button. We want to get to 50 so we can do some live, shows, talking back and forth and, taking questions. And, leave a comment if you like or hate what I'm talking about. Give me a thumbs up and thumbs down. Any interaction's a good action. So that being said, don't be car poor. What does that mean? This is a term I take from Dave Ramsey. And basically it means don't put yourself in tight finances trying to pay for a car. Or as he says, more car than you need. Now what he doesn't mean is, don't have the F-250 truck when you can get by with an S10. What he means is don't pay $600 for a car if you could get away with not paying $600 for a car. And he's absolutely right. And this is the same advice Q had given me when I was a young man. Unfortunately, I didn't listen to Q because I was 25. I was riding around on a motorcycle, and me and a date got caught in the rain, and I was like, I've been driving beater cars that I was embarrassed to take girls out in for too long. I'm 25. I'm a working professional. I want to buy a brand new car. And I did. Now here's the catch. I went out looking. None of those sports cars that the girls would have loved fit me. I was too tall for some of them, legs too long for others. Just did not fit right. It didn't work out. I ended up in a Kia Soul. Now, most of the cars I've owned in the past have been these Panther platform cars, like this town car that I'm in now. So I'm going to give you a general comparison between what it could cost to drive a paid-off Panther platform car, because you can get these things for anywhere from $1,500 in ratty condition for like a beat-up, former police P71 or Crown Vic. That's the civilian version versus the police version. Grand Marquis. The Chevy Caprice has a bigger engine in it, so it doesn't get quite the gas mileage these do. Then you have the Lincoln Town Car, which is that nice, leather-bound luxury wood panels on the inside. Town Car's the way to go, gentlemen. If you're looking for a nice date car, because it makes for a really comfy date car, whether you're going 5 miles or a couple 100 miles, taking her down to Disney for the weekend, I highly recommend Town Cars. You can fit all your crap in it, and if the worst comes to worst, you can sleep in the back on the side of the road. Getting back on track here. So the cost for me to operate a Panther like this, with how much I actually drive, and this is with like the cost of insurance. Let me do some quick math in my head. About 150, even with current gas prices, per month. I don't drive very much. I work from home. It is what it is. Even if I was having to commute back and forth like I used to, the Panther platforms cost me at most, let's say with current gas prices, about $300 a month. And that's with commuting to work 5 times a week. So, best case scenario, 150, worst case scenario, 300. I bought a very reasonable, in the big picture of things, brand new Kia Soul. And I traded it in on another Kia Soul because, the financing made sense and it was going to save me a few thousand and get me out of one that I had loved, but somebody hit it. I had some bad memories tied up in it, and I just wanted away from that car because it was painful to drive it after that point. An emotional decision, I know, but you know, when you're cutting someone out, you got to cut it all out sometimes. So when I got down to the second one, and this was about the same cost for either one, I was in about $400 per month in car payment alone. Now, here's the thing. Either of these Panther platforms, you can buy them, again, from $1,500 to about $7,500, depending on whether you're buying the basic, the used cop car, or you're buying one of the older luxury ones. And they're going to have anywhere between 50,000 miles on them to 200,000 miles on them. 200,000 miles on them is the car's been broken in. You know, you're going to have to replace the manifold maybe, and a couple of side things, maybe some suspension work. But the car has been barely broken in at 150,000 miles. 50,000 miles, it hasn't been driven enough, and you're going to have some issues with them over that. Anyways, getting back to it. So, again, for about a fifth of the price of that brand new car, and it was costing me $300 a month for the Panther platforms at worst. So let's say $5,000, because that's what I paid for this one, and $300 a month, worst case scenario. Compared to the Kia, $400 a month, you know, car payment, because financing $20,000 of it, or a little less, but let's say $20,000. So $400 a month for that. Another $40 a month because, you know, the price of insurance has worked out to be about the same because I carry heavier coverage on this Lincoln, because I want to make sure that I get what I value the replacement at, not what they value the replacement at. So I insure this Lincoln for more than it's worth, so I know I can get another one. So that's $440 so far. And let's say for gas, instead of the $240, I'm figuring at worst case scenario for the Lincoln, let's make it easy numbers, $160 worst case scenario run around for gas on that Kia Soul. Wasn't that much better for gas mileage, but we'll use these numbers, you know, because maybe you got a Kia Forte instead, or, you know, another car that's zippy and gets good gas mileage. I myself wanted the hatchback so I could still use it to do some work things. So your $400, $440, another $60 is $500, $600. So my Panther platforms, half the worst case scenario, half the operating cost than what it would cost on average to roll around in that Kia Soul each month. Now you're like, well, but you have the new car. Yeah, but for the $5,000, I've got the same leather seats I had in that Kia. I've got twice the amount of room I had in that Kia. I've got a much nicer stereo than I had in the Kia. And you know what? A $20 brace and my phone plugged in, and I've got the same navigation system as that Kia. It doesn't pay anymore to buy new cars because new cars don't do anything special compared to what old cars do now. You know, it's just they've aged through it, they've aged out of it. The technology's too easy now to put in. And I'll probably take the one of these days I'll do like a show me thing of, you know, how I've got the car set up. But so there's point number one. Don't buy a new car or even a certified pre-owned car when you can buy a car cash from a private dealer, have no payment, and with just a little bit of an investment, have a car that's going to run forever and cost you half or less to run compared to what you would have paid for that new car. And I understand that, you know, you could get a car and $10,000 financed. But that's $200 a month that you could keep in your pocket instead. But if you don't have the option, then do that. Not everyone's going to be comfortable buying from a private seller, but you're always going to get a better deal from the private seller. And remember, the car companies always get their money on you with maintenance packages and with the financing. So when you show up and you're paying in cash, they're not going to work with you because they don't think they're going to get a deal or anything with you. So it's always the financing where they're going to make their money in the long run. So, when you show up with cash in hand and you're talking to somebody who has a car up, for $4,000, $4,500, you can get a lot better trying to dicker with them and throwing cash money around because money talks. Because that person's not trying to sell you financing. That person's just going to, he's looking to get an item out of his possession and get money in his hand. So you can get a lot further dickering with people when you are making a cash purchase. So it's very much worthwhile to save and make that cash purchase. All right? Now, moving on to the next point, insurance. Do not be loyal to your insurance companies. Their loyalty discounts will never be worth more to you than it is to switch the company. And I'll highlight this point with myself. I was with Progressive for 10 years. I was on all their programs and everything. They raised my rate by so much that it canceled out all of the discounts I got. So the extra bump I got for the 10th year on their discount got canceled. The extra bump I got for getting 25% off on their discount because I put their snapshot thing in Studio B, then proceeded to drive the other car exclusively for 3 months. And so I got the full discount on this car because it didn't move. They were charging me $690. After all of that, they raised my rate so much that my discount only brought it down to $680. They, did me nice and dirty with that. Huge, huge hike. And they had always been so good to me before with my Kias. So Geico was willing to insure this same car with the same coverage, with the, extra, coverage that I carry, so they have to, give me enough money to go out and buy another one rather than just total the car and hand me a fraction of the money it's worth. $380, so $300 cheaper. Now, when I called back to Progressive, because I was still feeling loyal, I've been with them for 10 years. They've never given me any hassle. I've had to call and have them towed a couple times. That roadside assistance for $8 had come in so handy. I felt I wanted to stay because I wanted to get up to that, 25-year insured with the same company mark. That loyalty rewards program. I was looking to get the high score. Doesn't work out that way. Not worth. Hashtag. And oh my God, these gas prices. When did they hit 450? So definitely not worth. Even when I called them, they wouldn't work with me. They would not match Geico. They transferred me to their credit bureau, and this is going to be tip number one. So number one, don't be loyal. Call company to company. Point number two, if your credit score goes up and you are with the company and you're not switching your company, call the one you're with for your insurance and tell them you want them to lower your rate and you want them to check your credit score to transfer you to their credit section. So Progressive was not willing to price match Geico for me, but they were willing to knock $100 off because they hadn't checked my credit since I was in college, and so that wouldn't have changed in 10 years. So, that's hundreds of dollars I could have saved if they would have pulled my credit or if I had known that. So if you think your credit's in a good swing upward, north of 700, north of 750, you have them check your credit, you may be able to save some money. Now here's the next tip to saving money with your insurance. Even if you have to put it on a credit card, pay for your insurance in full all at once for the full 6 months. Most car insurance companies will give you a month for free if you pay for it all up front. And there's none other financing fees. So this car cost me roughly, oh, let me think, 380 divided by 5 or divided by 6. Basically $60. Anyways, it would cost 1/6 more to insure every 6 months. So it costs 400 something to insure if I didn't pay for it in full up front. And yeah, I throw it on the credit card, I get the points, and then I pay for it in cash over the course of 2 months. But even if you're putting it on the card, as long as you're paying it off quickly, and it's not going to sit on there and accrue interest for a year, you're ahead on it, because now you're cutting out all of the service fees that you're paying the insurance company, so it gets a couple bucks cheaper, per month. You're also cutting it down by one of those months by a sixth, so you're only paying 5/6 of what you would pay otherwise. That adds up. Much cheaper to do it that way. And like I said, even if you got that $400 premium, let's say, and you're charging it and you can only pay $200 one month and $200 the next, you're still coming out way ahead on the little bit of interest you're going to have to pay on that. Way ahead. So that's another way that you can, help keep yourself from getting car poor. It's by saving money on the insurance. Coming down to the next point, take a very careful look at what kind of car you're driving. So when I had the woman back into my Kia and I had to replace the bumper, that bumper was a $1,200 repair job for the bumper and another $300 for it to be done because of all the sensors that had to be unhooked, rehooked, blah, 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 with the bumper. Like, there's all kinds of tech in the bumper, apparently. Whereas with this car, this 08 Town Car, if I had to replace the bumper on this, the hardest part's going to be finding another black bumper to match. So like the paint might be a little off. But I could get another bumper for this out of the scrapyard and pay a mechanic $100 to swap it out, and I might pay $50 for that bumper in the scrapyard. If I got to order a new bumper for it, I might pay $100, $150 for the bumper, and again $100 to the mechanic, 1 hour labor to put the new bumper on, and that includes taking the old bumper off and putting the new bumper on. They're very cheap to work on, they're very cheap to keep in repair, and a lot of the things you can do yourself. If you were to, on a newer car, change the spark plugs, now you got to go and pay somebody to hook it up to the machine and take the error codes off because the spark plugs have been disconnected. This, you replace the spark plugs all on your own. No worries. It's got a computer in it, but the computer's not that sophisticated. You, say, need to change the oil. You can do that with this. Nothing's in the way. I've seen some new cars where you have to be able to put it on a lift because you've got to take the oil pan off to get to the oil filter. No bueno. So not only are the parts on like older domestic cars way cheaper for you to get, but they're what am I trying to say? Not only are the parts way cheaper for you to get, but they're way easier to work on because you don't have to take any parts out to put new parts in. So that's a huge savings right there. And again, you can have a very, very nice car that you paid in the cash for as you go around the roundabout, and still come out of it. Again, very nice car, paying a fraction of what you're going to. And now here's the big deal. The last time we talked about mortgages and how the ARM and everything could make or break you. That was a $400 thing. When we talk about, me not driving very much, being very careful, like to plan my trips and everything, and this car costing me maybe $120 to operate, or $150 to operate in the course of the month, Well, compare that to, say, this, 600 or more if I had the newer car still. That's the difference of that adjustable rate mortgage. That might make you lose your house. $400 on teacher pay. Let's say after, let's figure $30 per hour on average, and that's without taking taxes out. Whew. Let's see. So 10 hours would be 300, 13 hours would be 390. So you'd have to work 14 hours. That's that's basically half a work week going into your car that you could be saving by not driving that. And that's just one of the ways that, I'm able to, on a single teacher pay for everything, house, car, blah, 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 all on a single income as a teacher. Now, granted, I don't have kids, and I know kids can be expensive, especially when you start trying to fulfill their, wishes and everything. But I'm going to say this much, dating's expensive too. In fact, I think girlfriends probably cost more than kids. We need to find somebody who has both and let them tell me which one's more expensive. But this is kind of what I'm getting at is, so let's say even if you're not a teacher, if you're working, you're trying to get by, you can always, always look at what you're paying out for what you have, and sometimes you can get by with something cheaper instead. So in this case, as soon as I switched out from having the Kia to having this, I made out like a bandit with that Kia, because used car prices are crazy right now. If you've got a car that you bought new in good condition and you're ready to switch down to a much older car like this, that's what I did. I sold my Kia that I had for 4 years. I put 16,000 miles in 4 years on that Kia, and I sold it for $4,000 less than I paid for it brand new. So it cost me $1,000 a year to drive, and I got back not only enough money to pay for this in full, plus the upgrades I put into this car in full, but I also had money left over. And here I am now each month paying a fraction of the cost for my daily driver. Now, obviously, because I do the dumb every now and then, I have a classic car, and that classic car just about makes up for any money I'm saving having this as my daily versus that Kia. But, that's also having two cars for the price of one at that point. So, let's say I did have a wife who could be daily driving this car, and I could be daily driving the 79. And again, as long as we're not going too far, this one still makes decent on commute. And honestly, on a commute back and forth, in town, that white car's got to match this because it's all stop and go anyways. At the end of the day, when one's getting 12 and the other one's getting 16, in the worst case in city traffic, it's not going to be that huge of a difference when you're not going very far. But yeah, so that's, again, recap. Don't buy too much car. Buy from private sellers if you can. Bring a mechanic with you if you can. Check it out. Learn what to look for. Don't think you have to have a small car and pay more for the small car, because the money you save on gas might not be enough to offset the extra money you pay for the small car. When you talk to your insurance company, make sure that you have them check your credit to bring down your payment as much as possible, and do shop around every 6 months. You could be saving yourself hundreds by shopping around, depending on who you're with. And again, make sure that when you're buying a car and you're picking it out with something that can be repaired easily, especially if it's going to be one that's more than 100,000 miles. You buy a big, an old police car that has 100,000 miles on it, it's going to be way easier to have that car worked on than it's going to be if you buy a newer Honda Civic with 100,000 miles on it. The same mechanic, let's say it's the same repair that needs done, like the serpentine belt needs replaced. It's going to, the part might cost you the same for both of those cars, but it's going to cost you half the amount of money to put it onto this, because you can just about put a serpentine belt onto one of these by yourself without any fancy tools, just a YouTube video on how to, or have a mechanic do it in half an hour. Whereas on that Honda Civic, everything's packed in really tight. They're going to have to take stuff off to get to it, remove other things, put it on, put the other pieces back in. You might be paying for an hour labor, hour and a half, 2 hours labor. I've seen things where it takes two, on newer vehicles, where it takes two mechanics working together because you have to undo both sides evenly in order to get something off. All of that adds up. So that's been my advice for how to not end up car poor. If you'd like to hear more tips and tricks that I've learned over the years like this, let me know in the comments. Again, hit the subscribe, thumbs up, thumbs down, make a comment, and I'll talk to you guys later. Should be one coming tomorrow.